The Great War's aftermath. A wounded world. When the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, the guns silenced, but the world had changed irrevocably. Millions lay dead or wounded. Empires collapsed: Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, German. New nations sprouted briefly in Central and Eastern Europe. The League of Nations emerged, a fragile dream of collective security. But the terms of the Treaty of Versailles sowed resentment and devastated Germany. Hyperinflation gripped the Weimar Republic. Veterans returned to shattered homes and broken dreams. The world stood on unstable ground. Seeds of the Second Cataclysm, from resentment to aggression, the 1920s and 30s became fertile ground for dangerous ideas: fascism in Italy, Nazism in Germany, militarism in Japan. Economic hardship, especially during the Great Depression, bred desperation. Adolf Hitler rose to power in 1933, promising national rebirth. Benito Mussolini had already turned Italy into a dictatorship. And Japan, stunted by resource scarcity, looked outward for conquest. International appeasement, like the Munich Agreement of 1938, only emboldened aggressors. Invasion followed swift. Poland fell in 1939, France in 1940. The world plunged again into war, World War II. World War II, total war, total destruction. More brutal than the last, World War II unleashed horrors on an unprecedented scale: Holocaust genocide, targeting 6 million Jews and millions of other minorities. Total war economies, mobilizing entire populations. Technological leaps, mechanized infantry, air campaigns, amphibious invasions. Global scope, with fierce tests in Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific. The turning tides came at Stalingrad, El Alamein, Midway. By 1944, the Allies broke through, over Normandy, through Eastern Europe, into the heart of Germany. In the Pacific, island hopping, firebombing Tokyo, and finally nuclear strikes at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 brought Japan's surrender. The Second World War ended on September 2, 1945. A world left bloodied and scarred, a death toll surpassing 50 million. What happened next? From ashes to a new order, the Cold War emerges. The wartime alliance crumbled almost immediately. The USSR and the USA, once allies of convenience, became rivals. Europe was divided, the Iron Curtain split east from west. The arms race began, nuclear weapons cast a long nuclear shadow. Spy networks bloomed, proxy wars erupted in Korea and Vietnam. The world entered a 45-year Cold War, where diplomacy danced with the threat of total annihilation. Decolonization and a rising global South. European empires could no longer maintain their hold over colonies. From India's independence in 1947 to the African wave of decolonization in the 1950s and 60s, formerly colonized nations found sovereignty, and with it, new challenges: nation building, identity crises, Cold War alignment. The United Nations, a weary hope, formed in October 1945. The UN succeeded the League of Nations, aiming to prevent future wars. While it achieved some noble goals, peacekeeping missions, humanitarian aid, it often faltered amid veto power and bureaucratic inertia. Still, its existence symbolized a global yearning for cooperation. Economic reconstruction and integration. Under the Marshall Plan, war-torn Western Europe surged back to economic life. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank fostered global recovery. Western Europe consolidated, eventually giving birth to what is now the European Union. Scientific and cultural transformation. The Cold War spurred innovation: rockets, satellites, computers. The space race produced Sputnik, then Apollo's moon landing. Medicine advanced, television and mass media spread ideas globally. Culturally, post-war art, literature, and philosophy grappled with meaning in a shattered world. Existentialism, abstract expressionism, and anti-establishment sentiment blossomed. Echoes today, reflections from our present. The legacies of both world wars reverberate today. Borders drawn a century ago, like those of the Middle East, still foster conflict. International law and norms about war crimes and genocide traced back to World War II. alliances like NATO, formed in 1949, remained pillars of global order. Nuclear deterrence doctrine still governs power politics. The EU, originally a post-war peace project, now navigates Brexit, migration, and economic disparity. Cultural undertones, ideas of heroism, sacrifice, moral ambiguity, continue to shape our films, books, education. And so we ask, can we harness the lessons of those years, unity in the face of terror, diplomacy over aggression, justice over vengeance? A call to remember, lessons for our future. We bear witness, not for vengeance but for remembrance. We memorialize to guard against forgetting. We promote dialogue, because wars often begin with silence, fear, and mistrust. We invest in cooperation, whether through international institutions or grassroots movements. We innovate responsibly, steering technological breakthroughs toward life, not destruction. We stand vigilant, recognizing that the seeds of conflict, inequality, propaganda, closed borders, can always sprout again. The world wars were not just wars of armies, they were wars of ideologies, societies, and humanity itself. World War I and World War II are often portrayed in textbooks as a series of battles, treaties, and dates. But that misses the deeper truth. These were not just military confrontations. They were wars of worldviews, a brutal clash between old empires, rising nationalism, failed democracies, emerging fascism, and evolving technology. In essence, the wars were the global breakdown and reassembly of human civilization. In World War I, the clash began as a traditional imperial conflict, but quickly spiraled into a mechanized nightmare, where human life was reduced to a statistic in trench warfare. This war ended not with triumph, but with bitterness, disillusionment, and psychological scars that would ripple for decades. Then came World War II, born from the very resentment and ruin that the First War failed to resolve. But World War II expanded the battlefield even further. It became a war of systems. Democracy, fascism, communism, each claimed the future. Hitler's ideology wasn't just about borders, it was about rewriting what it meant to be human. The Holocaust was not only genocide, it was a cold, systematic attempt to engineer racial supremacy. Meanwhile, on the Allied side, the war became a test of whether free societies could stand against tyranny without losing their own soul in the process. This is why these wars mattered so profoundly. They weren't simply fought with bullets, they were fought in factories, newspapers, radio broadcasts, family kitchens, schoolyards. They were a global crisis of identity and survival. And when it ended in 1945, the world wasn't at peace, it was merely paused, fractured, and scrambling to understand how it even survived. The atomic bomb, the Nuremberg trials, the formation of the United Nations, all of it signaled a shift in human self-awareness. It became clear, war had changed. Civilization had changed. And the next chapter would not be written with bayonets, but with power blocks, ideologies, and technologies far more dangerous. Conclusion. From trenches to tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we have traversed the muddy trenches of World War I, witnessed the inferno of World War II, and navigated the complex web of aftermath, from Cold War rivalry and decolonization to a digitally connected yet precarious world. We stand today on shoulders battered by history, but stronger, wiser, and with more promise. Let this knowledge fuel our commitment to peace. History is not just a chronicle, it is a warning and an invitation. If we forget, we are doomed to repeat. If we remember and act with courage, compassion, and creativity, we can shape a future not defined by war, but by unity. Let us be the generation that says,